The morning shift bell rang across Prosperity 7, and Kang Dae-won opened his eyes in the small sleeping pod. His body ached in ways he had never experienced before. 3 days. He had been working on this station for only 3 days, and already everything felt wrong. He climbed out of the pod and saw Park Ji-won sitting on the floor of the Gongtong corridor, staring at nothing. Her eyes looked empty and tired. "You look terrible," Dae-won said. "You look worse," Ji-won replied. She stood up slowly like an old woman. "I can't do this anymore. 14 hours of work, 2 hours of rest, then 14 hours again. My brain feels like soup." Dae-won nodded. The schedule made no sense to him either. Back on Earth, they had worked 8 or 9-hour days with proper sleep at night. Here, the station never had night. The light stayed the same brightness all the time. His body had no idea when to sleep or wake up. They walked together to the engineering bay. The station was massive, built by the Velik Corporation to manufacture ship components for the Galactic Confederacy. Humans had only joined the galactic community 3 years ago, and this was one of the first jobs offered to Earth workers. The pay was excellent. The tests had been easy. Everything had seemed perfect. Now Dae-won was not so sure. In the engineering bay, 40 workers of different species moved around like machines. There was Overseer Thulmex, the station manager. He looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw everything. He had run this station for over 200 years. "Human workers, you are late by 37 seconds, Thulmex said. His voice came through a translator device that made him sound calm and emotionless. "This is the 3rd occurrence this week. Your efficiency ratings are concerning." Dae-won wanted to say something, but he bit his tongue. He and Ji-won went to their stations and began the day's work. The job itself was not difficult. They had to inspect structural components and mark any defects. The problem was that it was boring. Incredibly boring. The same task over and over for 14 hours. By the 6th hour, Dae-won's mind started to wander. He began looking at the components differently, noticing patterns in the defects. He realized that many problems came from the same manufacturing unit. If they fixed that unit, they could prevent defects instead of just finding them. "Ji-won," he whispered during a brief moment when Thulmex was looking away. "Look at these serial numbers. They're all from Station 7B. Ji-won glanced over and her eyes widened. "You're right. If we adjust the calibration on that unit, we could reduce defects by maybe 30%. Should we tell the Overseer?" "I don't know." "Is that allowed?" They had received a thick manual on their first day, explaining all the rules. Dae-won had tried to read it but fell asleep after 20 pages. He was not sure if suggesting improvements was permitted or forbidden. During the rest period, Dae-won and Ji-won found the other 6 humans working on the station. They gathered in an empty cargo bay, sitting in a circle on the floor. This felt more natural than the rest chambers the station provided, which were silent rooms with soft lights and strange smells. "Is everyone else struggling?" asked Kim Tae-yang, a young woman who worked in the materials processing section. Everyone nodded. "I feel like a robot," said Shinbo-ra, a propulsion specialist. "I do the same thing again and again. My brain is turning off. And the schedule is killing me," added another human named Ryu Minseo. 2 hours of rest is not enough. I need real sleep." They talked for the entire rest period, and for the first time in 3 days, Dae-won felt a little better. Just being around other humans complaining together made the situation more bearable. But when they returned to work, Coordinator Vess was waiting for them. She was an aquatic species, floating in a mobility tank filled with blue liquid. She worked in human resources and compliance. "Unauthorized gathering detected," Vess said. Her voice bubbled through her tank's speakers. "Human workers, you violated Protocol 16.7. Rest periods must be spent in designated rest chambers for optimal recovery." "We were just talking," Ji-won said. "Talking is permitted in rest chambers," Vess replied. "You chose an unauthorized location. This behavior suggests poor adaptation to station life. I will note this in your files." Dae-won felt anger rise in his chest, but he said nothing. He returned to his workstation and continued inspecting components. But now he was angry inspecting them, working faster, almost throwing the defective pieces into the rejection bin. The days continued like this. The humans tried to follow the rules, but everything felt wrong. They modified their workstations slightly to be more comfortable, and were told to change them back. They tried to take breaks together and were separated. They asked questions about why procedures were done certain ways and were told, because that is the protocol. By the end of the second week, the humans' efficiency ratings had dropped by 23%. This was apparently very bad. Overseer Thulmex called a meeting in the main conference room. All the human workers stood in a line while Thulmex and Coordinator Vess reviewed data on floating screens. Charts and numbers filled the air, all of them showing downward trends. "This is unprecedented," Thulmex said. "In 4,000 years of Velik Corporation operations, we have integrated 847 species into our workforce. All of them adapted to standard protocols within 2 weeks. Humans are the first exception. The data suggests incompatibility," Vess added. "Perhaps Earth workers are not suited for station life. We may need to terminate the contract and seek workers from other species." Day One's heart sank. He had left Earth for this opportunity. His family had been so proud. If he returned in failure after only 2 weeks, what would that mean for other humans trying to work in space? Park Ji-won stepped forward. This was unusual, and everyone turned to look at her. In the Galactic Confederacy, workers did not speak unless spoken to during formal reviews. "Overseer Thulmex," she said. "May I speak?" Thulmex's compound eyes focused on her. "This is irregular, but proceed." "We're not malfunctioning," Ji-won said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We're bored. Your protocols don't challenge us enough. 14 hours of repetitive work makes our brains shut down. 2 hours of rest is not enough sleep. Your rest chambers are too quiet and sterile. We need to talk to each other, to move around, to feel like we're doing something meaningful." "Boredom is not a recognized workplace condition," Vess said. "It is for humans," Ji-won insisted. "We need variety. We need problems to solve. We need to understand why we're doing things, not just follow instructions blindly. Give us challenges. Let us work together. Let us suggest improvements. We'll show you what humans can really do." The room was silent. Thulmex studied the humans for a long moment, his alien face unreadable. "This is most unusual," he finally said. "But I will consult with corporate headquarters. Perhaps humans do require different handling than other species." The meeting ended, and the humans returned to their stations. Daewon walked beside Ji-won. "That was brave," he said. "That was stupid," she replied. "I probably just got us all fired." But she was smiling a little, and so was Daewon. For the first time since arriving, he felt a small spark of hope. 2 weeks had passed since Park Ji-won's speech to Overseer Thulmex. Corporate headquarters had sent new instructions, and the station was implementing something called Adaptation Protocol 7. Kang Daewon sat in the briefing room with the other human workers, listening to Coordinator Vess explain the changes. "Your work shifts will be reduced to 10 hours, Vess announced from her floating tank. "You will have 4 hours of rest between shifts. We have also prepared an enrichment activities room for your psychological well-being." The humans looked at each other with cautious hope. 10 hours was better than 14. 4 hours of rest was better than 2. Maybe things would improve. After the briefing, Vess led them to the new enrichment room. The door slid open and Daewon stared at the strange space before them. Soft purple lights glowed from the walls. In one corner sat a cluster of meditation crystals that hummed at different frequencies. In another corner was a harmonic resonance chamber that supposedly aligned brainwaves. There were vapor lounges, sensory deprivation pods, and something called a contemplation sphere. These enrichment tools have proven effective for 23 species with similar adaptation difficulties, Vess explained. Use them during your rest periods to achieve optimal mental balance. The humans nodded politely. Vess left them alone in the room, and for a moment everyone just stood there in silence. Then Kim Tae-yang started laughing. "What is all this?" "I think we're supposed to sit still and feel peaceful," Park Ji-won said. "I don't want to feel peaceful," Shin Bo-ra said. "I want to feel alive." Within an hour, the enrichment room had been completely transformed. The humans moved the meditation crystals to one side and used them as weights. They repositioned the harmonic resonance chamber to create a pull-up bar. The contemplation sphere became a medicine ball. They turned the peaceful, calming space into a gym. Daewon felt better than he had in weeks. His muscles burned as he exercised, and his mind felt clear and focused. Around him, the other humans were laughing, competing to see who could do the most push-ups, who could hold a plank position the longest. "This is what we needed," Ji-won said, breathing hard after a set of exercises. Not meditation, movement. The 10-hour shifts also made a difference. With more rest and the ability to exercise, the humans' efficiency ratings began to climb. But something unexpected happened. They did not just return to their original performance levels. They exceeded them. Day 1 started analyzing the structural components more carefully, looking for patterns and root causes of defects. He created a simple system to track which manufacturing units produced the most problems. Ji-won began optimizing the inspection process itself, finding ways to check components faster without missing any defects. By the end of the first week under the new protocol, the humans' efficiency had increased by 140%. By the end of the second week, it was 340% above their original ratings. Overseer Thulmex called Day 1 to his office. The station manager's compound eyes studied him carefully. "Explain to me what you are doing," Thulmex said. "Your performance metrics are unprecedented." "We're just working smarter," Day 1 explained. He showed Thulmex his tracking system, the patterns he had discovered, the improvements he had suggested. "If you adjust the calibration on manufacturing unit 7B, you'll prevent most of the defects we've been finding." "These procedures are not in the manual," Thulmex said. "I know. I created them. Workers are not authorized to create new procedures." "Oh." Day 1 felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry. Should I stop?" Thulmex was quiet for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "Continue, but document everything you do. Corporate headquarters will want to understand this." The changes spread beyond the engineering bay. Yoon Han-nul, the human medical officer, started spending time in the station's medical center. The medical director was a crystalline being named Dr. Rixel, who looked like a walking cluster of blue gems. "Your species fascinates me," Dr. Rixel said to Han-nul one day. "Your biology is so redundant. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, multiple backup systems. It's inefficient but effective," Han-nul smiled. "We're survivors. Our bodies plan for things to go wrong." She began helping Dr. Rixel with medical cases and quickly noticed something interesting. The station's medical AI was very advanced, but it sometimes missed problems because it relied too heavily on standard diagnostic protocols. Han-nul used human intuition, looking at patients as whole beings rather than just collections of symptoms. She diagnosed a Velic worker with a rare mineral deficiency that the AI had missed. She identified stress-related illness in 3 different species by simply talking to them about their lives. Dr. Rixel was impressed. "You see patterns the AI cannot detect," Dr. Rixel said. "This is valuable." Meanwhile, other humans were forming teams without asking permission. Day 1 found himself working closely with Kim Tae-yang from materials processing and Ryu Min-seo from quality control. They shared information, helped each other solve problems, and covered for each other during break times. The non-human workers noticed this behavior and found it strange. Most species worked independently. Each person focused on their own tasks. The humans were different. They seemed to need each other. One day, alarms blared throughout the station. A solar flare had damaged an external sensor array. Without it, the station could not track incoming ships or debris. It was a serious problem. Coordinator Vess made an announcement over the station's communication system. "Sensor Array 79 is offline. Specialized repair drones will arrive in 72 hours. All workers continue normal operations." 72 hours seemed like a long time to Day 1. He pulled up the schematics for the sensor array and studied them. The damage did not look too severe. With the right tools and an EVA suit, someone could probably fix it manually in a few hours. "I could repair that," he said to Ji-won. "You're not authorized for external repairs," she replied. "I know, but I could do it." He went to Overseer Thulmex with his proposal. Kim Tae-yang and Shin Bora came with him, volunteering to help. "This is against protocol," Thulmex said. "External repairs are performed only by specialized units." "But we can do it now instead of waiting 3 days," Day 1 argued. "I've studied the schematics. It's not that complicated. The risk is unacceptable. The risk is minimal. We're trained for EVA work. We have the tools. Give us a chance." Thulmex's compound eyes shifted between the 3 humans. They could see him calculating, weighing options, considering possibilities that were not in any manual. "Proceed," he finally said, "but I will monitor every moment of the operation. If anything appears unsafe, you will return immediately." The 3 humans suited up and exited through the airlock. The void of space surrounded them, beautiful and terrifying. Day 1 felt his heart racing, but not from fear, from excitement. This was real work, meaningful work, the kind that mattered. They reached the damaged sensor array and got to work. The solar flare had melted some connections and fried several circuits. Using improvised tools and spare parts, they replaced the damaged components. Kim Tae-young held pieces in place while Shin Bo-ra welded them. Day-1 tested each connection as they worked. 4 hours later, they returned to the airlock. The sensor array was online and functioning perfectly. Overseer Thulmex was waiting for them. "This should not have been possible," he said. "The repair manual states such work requires specialized equipment and 14 hours minimum." "We're fast learners," Day-1 said, grinning inside his helmet. That night, Coordinator Vess received a transmission from corporate headquarters. The message was marked urgent. "What modifications have been made to Prosperity 7's human workers? Their performance metrics are statistically impossible for baseline species. Respond immediately with full details of any enhancements, genetic modifications, or cybernetic augmentations." Vess drafted her reply carefully. "No modifications have been made. The humans are baseline, unaltered. They are simply performing as humans naturally perform." She attached all the data, all the performance reports, all the incident logs. Then she added one final note. "Recommend comprehensive study of human psychology and work requirements. Standard protocols appear inadequate for this species." In the human quarters, Day-1 lay in his sleeping pod, exhausted but satisfied. For the first time since arriving at Prosperity 7, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. 4 months had passed since the first humans arrived at Prosperity 7. The station now hummed with an energy it had never known before. Kang Dae-won walked through the corridors and saw changes everywhere. Small changes but important ones. 3 more Velic Corporation stations had hired human workers. The company had distributed something they called the Human Handbook, an 847-page document explaining how to manage Earth workers. Dae-won had tried to read it once and laughed so hard he nearly cried. There were rules about everything. When to let humans socialize, how to give them challenging work, why they needed to understand the purpose of their tasks. It was also formal and complicated. A new human had arrived at the station yesterday. His name was Han Seong-min, and he was a safety inspector. He spent his first day walking around with a datapad, taking notes, frowning at things. "That railing is not secured properly," Seong-min said, pointing at a corridor barrier. "Someone could lean on it and fall through." "No one has fallen through it in 90 years, Coordinator Vess replied from her floating tank. "That doesn't mean it's safe. It means you've been lucky." Another new arrival was Choi Yeon-woo, a young shuttle pilot who looked like she was fresh out of training. She had bright eyes and moved with the confident energy of someone who had not yet learned to doubt herself. But the most important visitor was Administrator Quelm, a gastropod species who looked like a large, intelligent slug. He represented the Confederate Labor Board and had come to investigate reports of human workers being exploited or endangered. Overseer Thulmex gave Quelm a tour of the station while Dae-won and Park Ji-won listened from a nearby workstation. "Labor Board received concerning reports," Quelm said in his slow, deliberate voice. "Humans working longer than recommended hours. Humans volunteering for dangerous assignments. Humans modifying station equipment without authorization. These behaviors suggest you may be pushing them beyond safe limits." "I assure you, Administrator, we follow all protocols," Thulmex replied. "The humans behave this way naturally. We do not force them. I will interview the workers privately to confirm this." Over the next 2 days, Quelm spoke with each human on the station. Dae-won sat across from the administrator in a small meeting room, trying not to feel nervous. "Do you feel pressured to work excessive hours?" Quelm asked. "No," Dae-won said. "Actually, I wish my shifts were longer sometimes. 10 hours isn't always enough to finish what I'm working on." Quelm's eye stalks bent forward with interest. "You wish to work more?" "Well, not every day, but when I'm solving an interesting problem, yes. It's frustrating to stop in the middle." "And the dangerous assignments? The external repair work?" "That was exciting," Dae-won said, smiling at the memory. "Scary, sure, but also amazing. We fixed something important. We made a difference." Quelm made notes on his datapad. "This is most unusual." The administrator interviewed Park Ji-won next. She told him about her rest week, which had been mandated under Confederate labor regulations. Every worker received 1 week of rest after 6 months of continuous work. "And how did you spend this rest week?" Quelm asked. I redesigned the station's waste recycling system, G1 said. Quelm's eye stalks pulled back in surprise. That was not resting. It was for me. I got to work on something completely different from my normal job. I learned new things. I made the system 30% more efficient. It was fun. Fun, Quelm repeated slowly. You found redesigning a waste system to be fun? Yes. Quelm looked down at his datapad for a long moment, then up at G1. Your species confuses me greatly. That afternoon, Han Seung-min submitted his safety report to Overseer Thulmex. It identified 47 hazards on the station, everything from loose railings to inadequate emergency lighting. But at the end of the report, he added an interesting note. The human workers have been unconsciously avoiding or correcting many of these hazards, Seung-min wrote. They secured loose equipment, marked dangerous areas, and established informal safety protocols without being told. This suggests humans have strong survival instincts and pattern recognition for danger. While Quelm conducted his investigation, station life continued. One evening, Daewon walked past the human quarters and heard singing. He followed the sound and found 6 humans sitting in a circle, passing around bottles of some kind of liquid. What is that? He asked. Ryu Minseo figured out how to brew alcohol from station supplies, Kim Tae-yang said, grinning. Want to try? Daewon took a sip and coughed. It tasted terrible. That's awful. I know, Minseo said proudly. But it gets better after the 3rd sip. The next morning, Coordinator Vest discovered the brewing operation. She was horrified. This substance is classified as an industrial solvent, she said. You have been drinking industrial solvent? It's alcohol, G1 explained. Humans have been drinking it for thousands of years. It's cultural. It is a violation of Protocol 712. All unauthorized chemical production is forbidden. The humans looked at each other. Then Shinbora spoke up. But it makes us happy. We work better when we're happy. Isn't that what you want? Fest bubbled in her tank, uncertain how to respond. This was not covered in the human handbook. Everything changed on the 8th day of Quelm's visit. Alarms suddenly blared throughout Prosperity 7. Red warning lights flashed in every corridor. The station's AI made an announcement in its calm, emotionless voice. Critical failure in life support hub. Cascading system malfunction detected. Atmospheric processors offline. Backup systems failing. Estimated time to complete environmental failure. 4 hours. All personnel proceed to evacuation pods immediately. Daewon's heart jumped into his throat. He ran to the engineering bay and found the other humans already gathering there. Overseer Thulmex was coordinating the evacuation, directing non-human workers toward the escape pods. Humans, you must evacuate now, Thulmex said. What's the failure? Daewon asked. The primary coolant line ruptured in the life support hub. The heat melted control systems throughout the network. It is cascading to backup systems. The station cannot be saved. Can it be repaired? Jiwon asked. In theory, yes, but it would require teams working in 3 different sections simultaneously, in failing atmospheric conditions, with only hours to complete the work. The risk is unacceptable. We evacuate. Daewon looked at the other humans. They were all thinking the same thing. We can do it, he said. You cannot, Thulmex replied firmly. The atmospheric conditions are already dangerous. Within 2 hours, those sections will be uninhabitable. We have EVA equipment, Shinbora said, from our gym. We can split into 3 teams, Kim Tae-yang added. Each team takes 1 section. You will die, Thulmex said simply. Maybe, Daewon admitted. But maybe not. And this is our station too. We're not leaving without trying. Overseer Thulmex stood very still. His compound eyes moved from one human face to another. Then he made a decision that violated every protocol he had followed for 200 years. Very well, he said. I will coordinate from Central Operations. But at the first sign that the situation is hopeless, you will evacuate immediately. This is not negotiable. The humans moved fast. They organized into 3 teams. Daewon, Jiwon, and Minseo would tackle the coolant line. Kim Tae-yang and Shinbora would handle the control systems. Yoon Hanul and 2 other humans would work on restoring backup power. They gathered their EVA equipment, tools, and emergency supplies. Choi Yun-woo prepared a shuttle in case they needed emergency extractions. Administrator Quelm watched all of this with his eye stalks extended in shock. This is madness. You are risking your lives for a station that can be rebuilt. It's not about the station, Daewon said as he sealed his helmet. It's about not giving up. The next 4 hours were the most intense of Daewon's life. He and his team crawled through damaged sections, working in conditions that grew worse by the minute. The temperature climbed to dangerous levels. Smoke filled the corridors. Their suits' environmental systems struggled to keep up, but they made progress. Step by step, repair by repair, they pulled the station back from the edge of disaster. Daewon welded new coolant lines while Ji-won rerouted control systems. In other sections, the other teams fought their own battles against failing equipment and time. Thalmex coordinated everything from operations, his voice steady in their helmet speakers, guiding them through procedures, warning them of new problems. Even some non-human workers, inspired by human determination, stayed behind to help from safe areas. With 20 minutes remaining before total failure, the primary systems came back online. The coolant began flowing. The temperature started to drop. The atmospheric processors rebooted and began cleaning the air. Prosperity 7 was saved. Daewon collapsed on the floor of the corridor, his EVA suit covered in soot and coolant fluid. Around him, the other humans were equally exhausted, but they were smiling. Administrator Quelm found them there. He moved slowly toward Daewon, his gastropod body leaving a trail across the floor. "I asked Overseer Thulmex why you did not evacuate," Quelm said quietly. "He told me you said this is our station too. Explain this to me." Daewon pulled off his helmet. His face was covered in sweat and dirt. "We work here. We live here. The other workers are our friends. This is our home. When your home is in danger for..." 18 months had passed since humans first entered the Confederate workforce. Kang Daewon stood in the observation deck of Prosperity 7, looking out at the stars, and thought about how much had changed. More than 200 Confederate facilities now employed human workers. The species that had been unknown to the galaxy just a few years ago was now in high demand. The Human Handbook had grown from 800 pages to over 2,000. Companies across the Confederacy studied it like a sacred text, trying to understand how to work with these strange beings from Earth. A new human consultant named Baek Soo-jin had arrived on the station yesterday. She was older than most of the workers, maybe 42 or 43, with sharp eyes and a confident way of speaking. She had been a corporate strategist on Earth before coming to space. "I'm here to help Confederate companies understand human psychology," Soo-jin explained over breakfast in the station cafeteria. "Turns out we're expensive to hire now. Premium workers. Companies pay 3 times the standard rate for a human employee." Park Ji-won nearly choked on her food. 3 times? You're worth it, apparently. One human can supervise or inspire 3 times the normal crew size. You make other workers perform better just by being around them. Soo-jin smiled. Though not everyone is happy about this, she was right. Daewon had noticed growing tension on the station. Some non-human workers resented the attention humans received. They whispered in corners, gave cold looks, made comments about special treatment and unfair advantages. A Velic worker named Rixtal had confronted Daewon in the corridor last week. "You humans think you're better than us. You get shorter shifts, special accommodations, higher pay, but you're just another species. Nothing special." Daewon had not known what to say. He did not feel special. He just felt like himself. The tension was not limited to Prosperity 7. Soo-jin told them about protests on other stations, about Confederate workers forming groups to demand equal treatment. The situation had attracted the attention of the Confederate Economic Council. Director Zenvar is leading an investigation, Soo-jin explained. He's an avian species, very influential and very skeptical of what he calls human exceptionalism. He thinks we're getting unfair advantages. He believes we're given easier assignments but receiving higher pay. "That's not true," Ji-won said. "We work just as hard as anyone else. Harder, maybe, I know, but we need to prove it." Meanwhile, at a deep space mining station called Orbital Harvest, a human named Lee Jae-hwan was facing a crisis. He was a construction coordinator leading a mixed team of humans and non-humans in asteroid mining operations. The station had discovered a rich mineral deposit deep in an unstable asteroid field. The mining AI had calculated the mission parameters and delivered its assessment. Success probability was 12%. The standard procedure was clear. Abandon the operation. Accept the loss. Move to a safer location. Jae-hwan looked at the data on his screen and smiled. His team was gathered around him waiting for his decision. 12%, he said. So you're saying there's a chance? His second-in-command, a Velic engineer named Thalmas, clicked his mandibles nervously. Coordinator, the AI recommends abandonment. The asteroid field is too chaotic. Our drones cannot navigate it safely. The AI is right about the drones, Jae-Hwan admitted. They're too slow, too predictable. But what if we pilot them manually? Human reaction time, human intuition. We see patterns in chaos that AI can't predict. That is madness, another worker said. Manual piloting through an asteroid field? One mistake and we lose the drone. And the operator, which is why we need volunteers. I won't order anyone to do this. Jae-Hwan explained his plan. They would use human pilots to guide mining drones through the asteroid field manually. It would require split-second decisions, constant adjustments, and nerves of steel. But it could work. Every human on the station volunteered immediately. Then something unexpected happened. Several non-human workers also stepped forward. If humans can do this, so can I, said a young Velic named Sorval. I have been watching how you work. How you see problems as challenges instead of obstacles. I want to learn this, 2 others joined him. An aquatic species named Vel, and a crystalline being named Rix. They had all been inspired by working alongside humans. Thalmas looked at his fellow Velic in surprise. Sorval, this is not logical. The risks are too high. Logic is not everything, Sorval replied. The humans taught me that. The mission took 6 days. The team piloted mining drones through the asteroid field in shifts, each pilot pushing themselves to their limits. Jae-Hwan flew the first run himself, showing the others how to read the chaos, how to trust their instincts. Rocks spun past his drone at incredible speeds. Collisions happened in microseconds, but he made it through one by one. The others followed. The humans flew with reckless confidence. The non-human volunteers flew with careful determination. They learned from each other, covered for each other, celebrated each success together. On the 6th day, they extracted the last of the mineral deposits. The mission was complete. The 12% probability had become 100% reality. Back on Prosperity 7, Baek Soo-jin was preparing for her testimony before the Confederate Economic Council. She had spent weeks gathering data, interviewing workers, analyzing performance metrics across dozens of stations. Now she would have to present her findings to some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Director Zenvar sat at the center of the council chamber, his feathered crest raised in what might have been skepticism or hostility. Around him, other council members watched with interest. Consultant Baek, Zenvar said, his voice sharp and clear. You will explain why humans deserve special treatment in Confederate labor markets. The council has reviewed evidence suggesting human workers receive advantages not available to other species. Higher pay, shorter shifts, relaxed protocols. This appears discriminatory. Soo-jin stood calmly before the council. Director, with respect, humans don't have advantages. We have differences. Explain. Humans require different handling because we operate differently. We bond across species barriers instinctively. We see acceptable losses as challenges to overcome. We transform work into competition, competition into play, play into excellence. We're simultaneously individualistic and tribalistic. We require meaning, not just compensation. These traits sound unstable, Zenvar said. Unreliable. Why should the Confederacy accommodate such illogical creatures? Because logic isn't everything, Soo-jin replied. The Confederacy has spent thousands of years optimizing efficiency. You've created perfect systems for predictable results. But humans are unpredictable. When your systems say something is impossible, we're too stupid or too stubborn to believe it. And sometimes, just sometimes, we're right. Give me an example. Soo-jin displayed the data from Orbital Harvest. 6 days ago, a human coordinator led a mission with a 12% success probability. Standard protocol said to abandon it. He refused. He used human pilots to manually navigate a chaos field that AI could not predict. The mission succeeded. One example proves nothing, Zenvar said. I have 217 similar examples across 18 months of human employment. Prosperity 7 was saved from catastrophic failure by humans who refused to evacuate. Station Delta 9 increased productivity by 400% after hiring a human team leader. Facility Omega 7 solved a 15-year-old engineering problem in 3 weeks because a human worker asked, "Why not?" instead of "Why?" The council chamber was silent. Soo-jin continued, "Humans don't make other species look bad. We make them look different. We remind everyone that there are multiple ways to solve problems, Multiple definitions of success, multiple paths to excellence. The Confederacy doesn't need to choose between logic and intuition, between efficiency and creativity. You can have both. Director Zenvar was quiet for a long moment. His crest lowered slightly. And what do you recommend? Maintain the unique human protocols. But add one new requirement: mixed species teams. Humans work best when we have others to inspire and be inspired by, and other species benefit from exposure to human thinking. It's not about special treatment. It's about recognizing that diversity in approach is as valuable as diversity in biology. Park Ji-won had been watching the testimony through a live feed on Prosperity 7. She was listed as a station representative and had been asked to provide supporting testimony. Now, as Soo-jin finished speaking, Ji-won's name was called. She stood before the council, feeling very small and very human. Representative Park, Director Zenvar said, "You heard Consultant Bayek's testimony. Do you have anything to add?" Ji-won thought about the past 18 months, about the struggles and triumphs, about friends made across species barriers, about the station she now called home. "Director, you asked why you should accommodate humans. That's the wrong question. You don't accommodate us because we're logical or because we make sense. You accommodate us because when your systems say something is impossible, we don't always listen. We try anyway, and sometimes we fail, but sometimes we succeed in ways nobody expected. That's valuable. That's worth keeping." She paused, then added quietly, "And honestly, we make work more interesting. Isn't that worth something too?" A few council members made sounds. 5 years had passed since humans first made contact with the Galactic Confederacy. Kang Dae-won was now the chief engineer of Prosperity 7, a title he still found strange and surprising. He sat in his office, which had a window overlooking the engineering bay, and watched the mixed species teams working below. Everything had changed. The Confederacy had changed because of humanity, not just accommodated them. Dae-won saw it everywhere he looked. In the engineering bay, a young Velic worker named Tolmas competed with a crystalline engineer to see who could optimize a process faster. They were laughing. 5 years ago, Velic workers did not compete or laugh. They simply worked. In the corridors, multi-species sports teams rushed past wearing matching uniforms. They were playing something humans called football, adapted for zero gravity and different body types. The concept of competitive team sports had not existed in the Confederacy before humans introduced it. In the cafeteria, workers from different species ate together, telling stories and sharing jokes. Before humans, most species ate alone or only with their own kind. Humans had somehow made socializing across species barriers normal, even expected. Park Ji-won entered the office without knocking, carrying data pads and looking stressed. She was now the station operations director, which meant she managed everything Dae-won did not. "We have a problem," she said. "What kind of problem?" "The biggest kind." She pulled up a star map on his display. Confederate deep space sensors detected something approaching from outside known space. "It's big, it's moving fast, and it's not responding to any communication attempts." Dae-won felt his stomach drop. An invasion? Maybe. Premier Counselor Voth has called an emergency session. We're all supposed to watch the feed. They gathered in the main conference room with Overseer Thulmex and other senior staff. The station's AI projected the Confederate Council session on the large screens. Premier Counselor Voth was ancient, a member of a species that lived for thousands of years. His voice was deep and measured, carrying the weight of ages. "The approaching object is massive," Voth explained. "Initial scans suggested it is a generation ship, possibly containing millions of beings. Its technology is advanced, though different from ours. All attempts at communication have failed. The ship will reach Confederate space in 47 days. A military advisor stepped forward. "Based on trajectory and technology assessment, we calculate a 73% probability that this is a hostile force. We recommend preparing defensive positions and accepting projected casualties of 15 to 20 million across border stations." "Acceptable losses," another counselor said. "Unfortunate but acceptable." In the conference room on Prosperity 7, Dae-won felt something twist in his chest. 15 to 20 million deaths, dismissed as acceptable. On the screen, a human voice spoke up. It took Dae-won a moment to recognize who it was. Nam Hyun-woo, a young engineer, maybe 23 years old, who had grown up on Earth knowing about the Galactic Confederacy. He was part of the first generation of humans who had always lived in a galaxy full of other species. What if we don't accept the projected losses? Hyunyu asked. The council chamber went silent. Premier Counselor Voth turned his ancient eyes toward the young human. Explain. You're treating this like a math problem. Calculate the odds, prepare defenses, accept the numbers. But what if this isn't an invasion? What if they're desperate, afraid?
What if they're not attacking, they're fleeing?
Scans show weapon systems, the military advisor said. Scans show what might be weapon systems, Hyunyu corrected. Or they might be something else. You haven't communicated with them. You don't know their intentions. You're preparing for war without trying to understand. The risk of being wrong is too high, a counselor said. The risk of being right is higher, Hyunyu replied. If you're wrong about them being hostile, you start a war with refugees. If you're wrong about acceptable losses, 15 to 20 million people die who didn't have to. Another counselor spoke. What do you propose instead, young human? Help them. Reach out. Try to communicate in different ways. Offer assistance. Be the thing you want them to be. That is illogical. If they are hostile, such actions would weaken our defensive position. Daewon stood up in the conference room looking at the screen. Then let us do it. The humans. We'll make first contact. If it goes wrong, you lose a few humans instead of millions of others. On the screen, Hyunyu nodded. I volunteer. Within an hour, dozens of humans across the Confederacy had volunteered. Within a day, hundreds. They were willing to risk themselves on the possibility that understanding was better than violence. That hope was better than fear. Premier Counselor Voth watched all of this with his ancient eyes and made a decision. The humans will lead the first contact mission, he announced. But they will not go alone. Any Confederate citizen who wishes to join them may volunteer. We will prepare for defense, but we will attempt understanding first. Something amazing happened. Thousands of non-human workers volunteered to join the human-led mission. Phallic engineers, crystalline scientists, aquatic diplomats, avian navigators. Species that had never taken unnecessary risks before were now willing to try something new. The mission was massive. A fleet of ships approached the generation vessel, broadcasting messages of peace in every known language and several new ones. Humans led the communication attempts, trying everything from mathematics to music to art. For 40 days, there was no response. The generation ship continued its approach. Confederate defensive forces prepared for the worst. But the volunteer fleet did not retreat. On the 41st day, Yoon Hanul, who was now the director of the Confederate Medical Research Institute, made a breakthrough. She had been analyzing the generation ship's energy signatures and realized they matched a biological pattern, not a weapon system. They're sick, she reported. The whole ship. Some kind of disease or radiation poisoning. They're not preparing to attack. They're dying. The volunteer fleet immediately changed its approach. Medical ships moved forward. Humanitarian supplies were prepared. Humans and non-humans worked together to offer help to beings they had never met. Finally, after 43 days, the generation ship responded. Their message was simple: please, help, dying. What followed was the largest humanitarian operation in Confederate history. Medical teams boarded the generation ship and discovered a civilization fleeing the death of their own sun. They had been traveling for generations, their ship slowly failing, their people slowly dying from radiation exposure. The Confederacy saved them. Not because it was efficient or logical, but because it was right. Premier Counselor Voth addressed the Confederate Council after the crisis ended. Daewon and Jiwon watched from Prosperity 7, along with millions of others across the galaxy. For 4,000 years, Voth said, the Confederacy has calculated acceptable outcomes. We have survived and thrived through careful planning and logical decision-making. But we have also become rigid, predictable, cautious. We have forgotten that survival is not the same as living. He paused, his ancient eyes showing something that might have been wonder. Humans taught us something valuable. They taught us to question our assumptions, to refuse acceptable losses, to choose hope over fear. They did not do this by being superior or perfect. They did it by being stubbornly, illogically, magnificently unwilling to accept good enough. The newcomers to our Confederacy, the beings we rescued, bring new perspectives and technologies we never imagined. We gained this not through conquest or calculation, but through compassion. This is the human gift to us. Not their strength or intelligence, but their refusal to see other beings as numbers on a casualty report. Voth looked directly at the camera, speaking to everyone watching. The Confederate protocols for human workers will now become the foundation for how we treat all species, not as data points in efficiency calculations, but as individuals with unique needs, unique perspectives, unique value. We do not become human. We become more fully ourselves by embracing what humans reflected back to us. In her office, Park Ji-won pulled up the official human handbook one last time. She had been maintaining it for 5 years, watching it grow from 800 pages to over 2,000. Now, as the new protocols went into effect, she made one final update. She deleted everything except the title and added a single new line. Official statement. Human workers require unique handling. Addendum. All workers require unique handling. Humans merely reminded us to look. She saved the document and closed it. After 5 years, the handbook was finally complete. A knock came at her door. Daewon entered with a bottle of something that Ryu Minseo had recently brewed. It was legal now, classified as a cultural beverage rather than industrial solvent. Want to celebrate? He asked. Celebrate what? Everything. Us being here. The Confederacy changing. The universe getting a little bit better. Ji-won smiled and took the bottle. That's very human of you, I know, Daewon said, grinning. They walked together to the observation deck where they found a dozen other humans and twice as many non-human friends. Someone had organized an impromptu party. Music played. A mix of human and alien styles that should not have worked together but somehow did. Nam Hyunwoo was there, talking excitedly with a group of young Velic workers about his